In South Africa, concrete walls do not stop business. They do not stop politics. And they certainly do not stop desire. They only change the price. Welcome to a story that is currently shaking the foundations of our justice system. It is a story that begins in the marble halls of the Madlangacommission and ends in the cells of our country's most infamous correctional facility. It is the story of a man named Brown Mogotsi, a self-styled intelligence operative who claims to know everyone and see everything. It is the story of Vusimuzi Cat Matlala, the tender tycoon who allegedly looted millions from the state and is now sitting in a cell facing charges of attempting to harm someone. But today, we aren't talking about tenders. We aren't talking about police dockets. We are talking about something much more primal. We are talking about the allegations that Brown Mogotsi didn't just act as a political fixer for Matlala. He allegedly acted as his procurer. We are investigating the existence of a clandestine network, a prison escort operation operating right under the noses of the warders. A system where female prisoners are reportedly moved through service tunnels to provide companionship to high-profile male inmates. And at the heart of this scandal is a specific debt, a promise of 240,000 rands, a promise made to a desperate woman and a promise broken, a betrayal that might just be the thing that finally brings Brown Mogotsi to justice. My name is Mr. T, and this is The Untouchable Cell. Please hit the like button now and subscribe, because what I am about to drop is first-hand information that will shock you. To understand how a sex ring operates inside a maximum security prison, you first have to understand the arrogance of the men involved. You have to understand the psychology of the big man. Let's start with Vusimuzi Matlala, known on the streets as Cat. Matlala is not your average inmate. He is a man whose name is synonymous with the collapse of the SAPS Health Services tender, a deal worth 360 million rands. He is a man accustomed to the finest things in life. Before he was wearing an orange jumpsuit, he was wearing Italian suits. He was driving cars that cost more than most people earn in a lifetime. Currently, he sits in Kagosi Mampuru, facing serious charges: attempted murder and conspiracy to commit murder, stemming from an alleged hit on his ex-girlfriend, Tebogo Thobejane. Now, most men, when they land in prison, they shrink, they become small, they focus on survival. But according to every source I've spoken to, Matlala did the opposite. He treated his incarceration like a temporary inconvenience, a business trip to a bad hotel. He believed, perhaps rightly, that his money could buy him comfort. But money in prison is useless without a runner. You need someone on the outside, someone with clearance, someone who can walk through the front door, smile at the guards, and make things happen. If you have been following the Madlangacommission, you have seen Mogotsi. He is the man in the suit, sweating under the lights, spinning tales of espionage and counterintelligence. He claims to be a handler. He claims to work for the generals. But I wanted to see what the public really thought of him. I spent last night diving into the archives of X, formerly known as Twitter, searching for the truth behind the persona. And the court of public opinion is brutal. I found a post from a user with the handle by greatest. It had over 1,000 likes. It didn't describe Mogotsi as a spy. It described him, quite hilariously but sharply, as indirectly Cat Matlala's girlfriend. Why that label? Because the digital trail shows a relationship of dependency. We have seen the leaked WhatsApp messages presented in evidence. They are embarrassing. They show Mogotsi constantly begging Matlala for money. He asks for flight tickets. He asks for entertainment allowances. He asks for vague operational costs. It paints a picture of a man who was financially addicted to Matlala. But here is where the story shifts. When Matlala was moved to the high security section, the C-Max, the flow of money should have stopped. The accounts were frozen, the contacts were severed, but Mogotsi didn't walk away. Instead, our investigation suggests he pivoted. He realized that while he couldn't get millions out of Matlala anymore, he could still make himself indispensable. He could provide the one thing Matlala couldn't buy at the prison commissary. He could provide women. Now I want you to picture the logistics of this. This isn't a movie. You can't just dress a woman in a guard's uniform and walk her past 5 security checkpoints. Kagosi Mampuru is a fortress. So how do you do it? I spoke to a former correctional services officer who left the force 2 years ago under a cloud of suspicion. He refused to go on record, but he explained the economy of movement inside the prison. He told me that the male and female sections of the prison are distinct, separated by high walls and razor wire. However, they are part of the same complex. They share industrial laundry facilities. They share medical transfer units. And most importantly, they share a staff roster. The officer described a method known as the intersectional transfer. The scheme, allegedly orchestrated by Brown Mogotsi, worked like this. It began with a digital signal, a message sent from the outside to a compromised guard on the inside. Let's call this guard Officer X. Officer X would receive a payment. We aren't talking about millions here. In the prison economy, a guard earning a basic state salary can be bought for 5,000 rands or 10,000 rands cash. Once the payment was verified, Officer X would manipulate the daily roster. He would identify a female prisoner, usually someone trusted, someone desperate, someone who had already been groomed for this role. He would file paperwork claiming that this female inmate needed to be moved to the administrative block for cleaning duties or specialized medical consultation. At the same time, in the male section, Vusimuzi Matlala would be escorted out of his cell. The excuse? A legal consultation, a meeting with his lawyers. But there were no lawyers. The meeting point was allegedly a holding room near the prison chapel or the unused medical storage rooms. These are the blind spots. The places where the CCTV cameras mysteriously suffer from technical glitches for 45 minutes at a time. This was the service Brown Mogotsi was selling. He wasn't just a political fixer. He was the logistics manager for a prison brothel. And the cost? It wasn't cheap. But Matlala didn't pay with cash in hand. He paid with promises. He paid with transfers from his remaining business accounts, managed by Mogotsi on the outside. But the real currency, the currency that fueled this engine, was the promise made to the women. This brings us to the most heartbreaking part of this scandal: the women. These aren't high-priced escorts living in luxury. These are female prisoners. Women serving time for fraud, for shoplifting, for drug mules. Women who are often the sole breadwinners for families on the outside. Families who are now starving because their mother is behind bars. I managed to track down a woman who was released from Kagosi Mampuru just 3 weeks ago. For her safety, we will call her Lerato. I met Lerato in a busy, noisy shopping mall in Mamelodi. She was terrified. She wore large, dark glasses and kept her head down, constantly scanning the people walking past us. She was convinced that Brown Mogotsi had people watching her. I sat across from her and I listened to her story. It was a story of manipulation and exploitation that chilled me to the bone. She told me that she was approached by a female warder in the exercise yard. The warder didn't threaten her. She seduced her with hope. The warder told her that there was a big man in the male side who needed companionship. She was told that this man was powerful, that he was rich, and that he was generous. Lerato told me, in a voice that was barely a whisper, about the offer. She was promised 240,000 rands. Let that number sink in. 240,000 rands. To a woman who has nothing, whose children are living with their grandmother struggling to buy bread, that amount of money is not just a payday. It is a new life. It is a house. It is school fees. It is redemption. She was told that Brown Mogotsi was the banker. She was told that Mogotsi was holding the funds and that upon her release, the money would be waiting for her. A thank you, gift for her discretion. And so she agreed. She described the night it happened. She described being moved through the service tunnels. She described the smell of the damp concrete and the flickering fluorescent lights. She described the fear, the terrifying thought that she might be walking into a trap, that she might be raped or killed, and no one would ever know. But when she got to the room, she found Cat Matlala. She told me he wasn't aggressive. He was pathetic. He was desperate. He had snacks smuggled in, fast food, cold drinks. He had a smartphone on the table. For 40 minutes, Lerato wasn't a prisoner. She was a therapist. She was a confidant. Matlala didn't just want sex. He wanted to talk. He wanted to brag. She told me he spent half the time ranting about his enemies. He spoke about General Nlenla Mkhwanazi. He screamed about how he had paid millions to the police, paid millions to the politicians, and yet they still hunted him. He even made a phone call while she was there. He put it on speaker. Lerato recognized the voice on the other end. It was Brown Mogotsi. She heard Mogotsi laughing. She heard him say, "Don't worry, Chief. The operation is smooth. Is the girl there? Good. Enjoy your VIP package." Lerato left that room feeling dirty, but she also felt hopeful. She went back to her cell and counted down the days to her release. She dreamed of that 240,000 rands. She planned every cent of it. 3 weeks ago, Lerato walked out of the prison gates. She was a free woman. The first thing she did was borrow a phone. She dialed the number the warder had given her, the number for Brown Mogotsi. She expected a welcome. She expected an arrangement to transfer the money. Instead, she got silence. She texted him. She called him. She sent messages saying, "I am out. I kept my side of the deal. I want my money." Finally, after days of silence, Mogotsi responded. He agreed to meet her, not at a bank, not at an office, but in a parking lot near a fast food outlet in Sunnyside. Lerato told me she arrived with her heart in her throat. She saw his car, a luxury sedan that looked out of place in the grim parking lot. She walked up to the window. She expected an envelope with 240,000 rands, or at least a significant portion of it. Brown Mogotsi rolled down the window. He didn't look her in the eye. He reached into the center console and pulled out a plastic grocery bag. He tossed it at her. Inside the bag was cash, but it wasn't a fortune. It was 2,000 rands in small, crumpled notes. He told her, "The accounts are frozen. The police are watching. Take this for transport and disappear. If you talk, you go back inside." 2,000 rands. That was the value Brown Mogotsi placed on her risk. That was the value of her dignity. 238,000 rands short of what was promised. Lerato stood in that parking lot, clutching a plastic bag of small change, and she realized the truth. There was no millions waiting. There was no honor among thieves. She had been used. And that is why she is talking now. She isn't talking for the money anymore. She knows she will never see that 240,000 rands. She is talking because she wants revenge. She wants the world to know that the great political fixer, the spy master Brown Mogotsi, is nothing more than a scam artist who exploits vulnerable women. Now you might be thinking, this is just the word of one woman. Can we prove it? Well, let's look at the facts that are already in the public domain. Let's look at the digital trail that Mogotsi and Matlala left behind. We know for a fact that Matlala had a phone in prison. The Department of Correctional Services confirmed it. They raided his cell. They found the device. But let's look at when he used that phone. Video footage circulating on X, posted by news outlets like Newsroom Africa, shows Brown Mogotsi testifying at the commission. In his own testimony, under oath, he admits that Matlala called him from prison. He claims Matlala called him to complain about the police commissioner, General Mkhwanazi. He claims Matlala was panicked about the tender investigations. But does that fully explain the panic? If you look at the timeline, the raid on Matlala's cell happened right as the rumors of the Magosha ring started to surface on the streets. I believe, and sources close to the investigation agree, that the panic wasn't just about the tenders. The panic was about the girls. Imagine that phone call between Matlala and Mogotsi. Imagine the desperation. Matlala wasn't just worried about the hawks. He was worried that the women he had been sleeping with were about to turn on him. He likely knew that Mogotsi hadn't paid them. He likely knew that there were women like Lerato who were about to be released and who were owed massive sums of money. If the police crack that phone, and believe me, they are trying, they won't just find evidence of corruption. They will find the menu. They will find the photos of the women. They will find the scheduling messages sent to the corrupt guards. We dug deeper into the social media discourse. I found a thread by a user named iJoyZelda. This user is known for leaking sensitive information. They posted details about the phone calls, alleging that Matlala was screaming at Mogotsi to fix the situation. Another user, iPatriotSA, suggested that Mogotsi was frantically looking for new benefactors because Matlala's money had dried up. He was robbing Peter to pay Paul, or in this case, robbing Matlala to pay, well, nobody. The narrative fits perfectly. The erratic behavior of Mogotsi at the commission, the sweating, the lashing out. This isn't the behavior of a calm intelligence officer. This is the behavior of a man who knows his Ponzi scheme is collapsing. He owes money to the guards. He owes money to the women. And he has the most powerful police force in the country breathing down his neck. So, where does this leave us? As I speak to you now, the net is closing in. The arrest for Brown Mogotsi is not a matter of if, but when. The Madlangacommission has exposed him as a fraud. The police investigations have exposed him as a corrupter. But it might be the Magosha scandal that finally buries him. Why? Because human trafficking, and let's be clear, moving women through a prison for sex by deception is a form of trafficking, is a crime that carries a mandatory life sentence. It is a crime that strips away any political protection he might think he has. If the testimony of Lerato, and perhaps others like her, is brought before a judge, Mogotsi is finished. There are rumors that the Hawks are already preparing the docket. There are whispers that a second woman, a prisoner we will call Sipo, has already been approached by investigators and is currently in witness protection. She was allegedly promised a job in one of Matlala's shell companies. Another lie, another debt unpaid. Brown Mogotsi spent years building a reputation as a man who could fix anything. A man who could whisper in the ears of ministers. A man who could organize a Magosha in the deepest, darkest hole in South Africa. I want you to imagine the irony of the situation when Brown Mogotsi is arrested, and he will be arrested. Where do you think they will send him? They will send him to Kagosi Mampuru. He will walk down the same corridors he used to traffic women through. He will wear the same orange uniform as the men he exploited. And when the door of his cell slams shut, he won't be the fixer anymore. He will be just another inmate. And somewhere in that prison, in the CMAX section, Vusimuzi Cat Matlala will be waiting. And I have a feeling that Cat Matlala is going to want a refund. This has been the Untouchable Cell. I'm your host. Keep your eyes on the news and remember, in the dark, even the walls have ears.